Welcome to this explainer. We are jumping right into a highly complex, honestly pretty fiery issue today, the Irish boycott of the Eurovision Song Contest. We're going to break down the exact arguments from both sides of the aisle to see how a glittering pop music competition basically turned into a massive geopolitical flashpoint. It really makes you wonder, right? Can pop music ever truly escape global politics? It's a fascinating question, and it's the exact dilemma that has thrust Ireland into this fierce nationwide debate. What we're witnessing is a real-time stress test of whether a huge, unifying cultural event can actually be separated from the stark realities of international conflict. Section 1. The Catalyst. The Irish Eurovision Boycott. To set the stage, we are looking at a massive cultural blackout across the country. It starts right at the top, with the national broadcaster, RTE, officially pulling the plug on participating in or even broadcasting the event. And that decision just cascaded downwards. Iconic Dublin venues, places that are absolutely woven into the city's DNA, like Panty Bar on Capel Street, have canceled their screenings. Even the George, which is actually celebrating its massive 40th birthday this weekend, no small milestone, scrapped its traditionally huge Eurovision screening party. So we're seeing the usual glitter of Eurovision replaced by a pretty stark reality. Part 2. The proponent's lens, the case for the boycott. 3. That is the number of consecutive years Rory O'Neill, who you might know better by his stage name Panty Bliss, has refused to screen the event at Panty Bar. And look, this wasn't just some casual, spur-of-the-moment decision. Historically, Eurovision Night was literally one of their biggest, most packed events of the entire year, falling just behind Pride and St. Patrick's Day. So giving that up, that is a major, major shift. So why the shift? Well, O'Neill emphasizes that, given the immense scale of civilian casualties in Gaza, participating in this kind of glittering celebration is just an absolute impossibility in good conscience. He's mentioned that while a few folks maybe grumbled initially during the first year of the boycott, people now pretty much universally understand the rationale. Plus, he notes that with RTE officially bowing out, it's actually become incredibly easy for the general public to just tune out and completely ignore the contest. But for O'Neill, it goes a bit deeper than the direct, devastating human toll. He strongly argues that Israel is actively using this massive Eurovision stage as, in his words, a deliberate and obvious propaganda tool. The core argument here is that there's a concerted, active effort to push a very specific political narrative onto the rest of Europe, basically using a wildly popular entertainment competition as a smokescreen. And to back that up, he points straight to the mechanics of the contest itself. Specifically, he brings up accusations of public vote manipulation from last year's competition. The claim is that voting was artificially skewed to create this false impression that there was widespread, grassroots European support for Israel. And this wasn't just a fringe theory. The controversy gained so much traction that Eurovision organizers were actually forced to rewrite their rules, intentionally reducing the overall weight of phone-in votes to curb any perceived manipulation. Okay, so on one side of this deeply polarizing issue, you have Rory O'Neill and others who see the boycott as a completely necessary moral stance against a geopolitical propaganda tool. But if we flip the coin, we hear from Maurice Cohen, chairman of the Irish Jewish Council. Cohen looks at these boycotts through an entirely different and highly concerning historical lens, warning that this creates a climate of sustained moral vilification. Section 3. The critic's lens, the pushback and concerns. Cohen kicks things off by questioning the very foundation of RTE's blackout. He asks a really critical question. Is this media withdrawal genuinely based on a broad, consistently applied editorial principle from the broadcaster? Or did RTE simply cave to pressure from a relatively small, yet highly organized and highly vocal activist constituency? He's really challenging the fundamental integrity of the decision-making process behind the boycott. For Cohen, you see, the core issue isn't really about a single pop music contest. It's about the cumulative effect. It's this compounding, dangerous pattern of repeatedly singling out Israel across absolutely all avenues of public life. We're talking cultural events, political debates, general public discourse, the whole shebang. It's the relentless nature of this targeting that is ringing major alarm bells for the Jewish Council. And he's very clear about the emotional and psychological toll of this pattern. Cohen argues that when Israel, and Israel alone, faces this kind of exceptional, isolated treatment, it rapidly crosses the line from just standard neutral political critique into something much darker. For many in the Jewish community, this is understandably experienced not as policy debate, but as a very real, very threatening atmosphere of localized hostility and demonization. To put it bluntly, Cohen reminds us that European history casts a very long, incredibly dark shadow. Because of that history, Jewish communities are acutely, instinctively on high alert the second political rhetoric begins to normalize the exclusion of any single group. He stresses that Europe has seen firsthand exactly where relentless demonization leads. So naturally, that heavy history is directly informing their present-day anxieties about these cultural boycotts. Section 4. The synthesis. Culture as political battleground. When it comes to the actual on-the-ground impact, Cohen argues forcefully about the utility of these boycotts. Yes, symbolic gestures like turning off a TV broadcast might generate some splashy headlines. And sure, they might satisfy the immediate demands of local activists, but, he argues, they absolutely do not improve the lived reality of Israelis or Palestinians. Most importantly, they do not bring peace even a single inch closer to reality. In fact, Cohen takes it a step further, warning of some pretty severe national consequences. He argues that by leaning into these highly publicized, one-sided cultural boycotts, Ireland is actively putting its hard-earned international reputation at risk. Think about it. For decades, Ireland has been widely respected globally as a trusted, neutral mediator, a nation celebrated for its diplomacy, conflict resolution, and moral persuasion. So if Ireland actually wants to play a constructive, meaningful role in the Middle East's peace dialogue, Cohen stresses that maintaining credibility is absolutely crucial. He warns that establishing predetermined allegiances through these high-profile cultural boycotts essentially destroys the perception of Ireland as an honest and credible interlocutor. I mean, you can't exactly be a neutral mediator if the world sees you actively taking a side in the cultural arena, right? Which leaves us with this final, critical thought to ponder as we wrap up this explainer. Eurovision has always had political undercurrents, for sure. But in our highly polarized, constantly connected world, we have to ask ourselves, can cultural spaces ever truly serve to unite us and bridge divides? Or is the very idea of a politically neutral stage just a total illusion? Are our celebrations simply destined to become the new battlegrounds for our deepest political confrontations? It's a huge question that goes way beyond a single song contest, and it definitely demands our continued reflection. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer.